Well, great. Thank you. Thanks for a ton, you three, for being here. This is great. This is, as some of you may know, this is a follow-up from several weeks ago when Tony, Suzy, and Sims joined us to talk about 2025 trends. And it was an incredibly well-received webinar, live podcast, let's call it. That's much cooler. So well-received that we actually had people say, hey, we would like to ask them questions. We'd like to get them back. So they were gracious enough to do that with us. So that's why we're here today. Let's go ahead and get started. Wherever you're calling in from, thrilled that you're here with us today. Thank you for being here. I'm Justin Clifford. I work at Bereave, and I will be your host. This program is called Loss Leaders, and it's a program centered around how typically how companies could and should step up when loss occurs in the lives of their employees. And the reason that we do these programs is that we're on a mission to help companies provide the absolute best bereavement response when their employees suffer a loss. And in that pursuit, we meet incredible people like you see here, doing incredible things and can bring so much education to our customers, our prospects, our friends, business leaders that just want to make an impact in the lives of their employees. So this is our effort to get them in front of you. Our chat is open, and this is an AMA format that I'll get to in a second. So feel free to put anything that you want in the chat, within reason. Let's keep it professional to some degree. Chat's open. We'll go to about 45 past the hour, and we'll send out recordings by the end of the week. As you heard, this crew has nearly 5 decades of benefits experience. The reason they're here is really to help continue to navigate your benefits choices for 2025, because that's coming in hot. If you're not working on it now and you're supposed to be, you might want to hop off as soon as this is done and get started. And you can call all 3 of them to help you out. There's lots of things happening out there in as far as benefits goes. We've got 4 generations represented in the workplace, lots of needs, lots of wants, lots of desires. And because of that panel a few weeks ago, we thought we'd mix it up with what is referred to as an Ask Me Anything, or as the kids call it, an AMA. So Suzy, Sims, and Tony are on the hot seat. We've got some questions that were sent to us in advance that we'll kind of get started on, some pre-submitted. Go ahead and load your questions into the chat. We'll see them. We'll post them and make sure that they're up on the screen, and we'll start knocking those out one by one. So we've done intros. Let's start with a couple of the questions that were submitted in advance. And I'll start the extra hot seat. I'll say the question and I'll just call on one of you. And if we want to do some follow-up, we can do that. Cool. So Amber in Omaha DM'd us and said, what are companies prioritizing as it relates to mental health? Okay, we talked about this a lot last time, talked a lot about mental health. I should also be really clear that she went on in this note to say that we shouldn't need a major life event to have access to affordable mental health care. So what are some of the products out there, some of the companies that you're seeing? And I would also like your response to not having a major life. How do you offer this a little bit more proactively? Sims, let's start with you.
Let's do it. Love this. You know that mental health is my passion. I just only get paid a little for it. So the thing that I'm seeing in the benefit space today, and just as a trend, is that non-clinical support is having its day in the sun. So you look at companies like Shoulder, like Forte, like my clients, LB Health. They're focusing on, okay, in between these big therapy sessions or these big crises and interventions people have to have, how do we just make people feel okay talking about their feelings? So these are organizations like Shoulder and Forte, non-clinical folks who are trained to support others, and they can talk to you when you have a need, right? And then LB Health is similar, offering peer-led support groups to discuss things like bereavement, living with a chronic illness, working at a terrible, horrible workplace and how to deal with that. So that's the rise as far as the trend goes that I'm seeing. But two important kind of call outs from my perspective on how we kind of change the shape of the conversation is that it's our responsibility as leaders to do this. So one of the things I like to do, I mean, you guys see me post about my abuse and my addiction and everything all over LinkedIn, but on my work calendar, I put my therapy appointments on my work calendar just to show other employees like, hey, this is something we talk about. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's something we need to do. And then the last plug that I'll make is for my buddy, Johnny Crowder, who runs Coke Notes. They take a different approach to mental health in that they just do text message based support that all employees get every day. And so it eliminates the idea of where do I go for help when I need it, because you're getting help all the time, whether you need it or not. So I know I said a lot. Hope there's some value in there for you guys.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And we're seeing, we've even seen kind of the rise of text and message based like grief support, right? There's a company that we've partnered with that provides that, very inexpensive from a consumer perspective, probably even less expensive from a business perspective, and super high value. Suzy, anything that you've come across outside of what Sims mentioned?
Well, I'll add to that. So I'm in the LSA space, and LSA stands for Lifestyle Spending Account, which are essentially customizable spending accounts that traditionally support well-being to include emotional and mental health. Those non-clinical folks, like Sims mentioned, marriage and family counseling, oftentimes these are not included on the medical plan. They're not included there, which means you can put it on your LSA policy and still be in compliance. So I want to flag this for folks. I know that LSAs are fairly innovative as the benefit space goes. So not everybody is running an LSA program. I get it. But for those that are, make sure that you do have, again, marriage and family is typically what we like to add to LSAs to make sure everything is encompassed. And now employees can pull from the resources that they have in their medical plan, their EAP, as well as some of that non-clinical stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So there's a lot out there to navigate. Do you have any? Do any of you have any recommendations on, like, if somebody wants to navigate mental health benefits for their employees? Is there a good resource that you have found that has consolidated a lot of these types of things, or is this just like for on the employer side? Is this just something that they need to either hope to be prospected by a salesperson on, or that they've got to do the Googling themselves? Tony, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there are so many different point solutions out there that are focusing in on specific topic areas like of mental health, whether it be specific to financial well-being or caregiving or things like that, and really honing in on what I'll call niche market, if you will, niche market. And the problem is it's hard to find a point solution or a vendor that can handle all components of mental health. Justin, you had mentioned that at the start of the call, there are 4 different generations in the workforce today. And what's impacting those generations from a mental health perspective is very different among those different generational cohorts. And so it's challenging for any employer to be able to find a one-size-fits-all solution for mental health. And so it's really understanding what's driving your employee population, and then once you know that what conditions are driving their mental health spend, then determining which point solutions make the most sense. I mean, I'm sure Sims is getting calls like I am and emails from a plethora of point solutions every single day, and it's impossible to keep up with all of them. So you have to do a very targeted analysis of your employee population to understand what's driving the mental health claims, and then narrow it down from there. because there's a solution for everything.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. An older, maybe aging, blue collar workforce is going to probably have a much different mental health need, generally speaking, than a younger technology focused workforce, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it is very fair. And they want to access the mental health assistance very differently as well. Like, Sims mentioned text messaging, and that works really well for certain generational cohorts. And others want to talk to somebody live, and others want to meet with somebody in person. So, and those solutions exist across all cohorts. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I will say, just a plug for companies that I know that you mentioned, financial literacy as one. Your Money Line is a startup here in Indianapolis, run by Pete the Planner, who you might have seen on like USA Today and Good Morning America and all those, very well-known financial planner, and Iana Care for the caregiving side that you mentioned, Tony. Jessica Kim runs Iana Care. That is a fabulous caregiving application. Cool. Switch gears a little bit, and I want to go. I shouldn't say. Let's say a little bit, because this is about the multi-generational workforce. Jean-Marc in Berlin. I nailed that pronunciation, I'm sure. What are companies doing to address the multi-generational workforce and trying to meet them where they are in life and providing benefits that are applicable and appropriate for each of their wants and needs? We talked a little bit about the mental health side already. Are there other things that you are seeing that companies are trying to do to address these different generations outside of the mental health space? Sims, and anything that's coming across your radar?
Yeah, I'll highlight two big things and then pass it on, because I know Suzy's going to have a lot to say about this. I think Tony will too. But I think lifestyle spending accounts are a really good solution, because, as Tony mentioned, there's a solution for every problem, but you can't put 120 point solutions into one company to satisfy the needs of everyone. So if you've got 4 separate generations working, the millennials like me, we want pet insurance. The Zoomers younger than me, maybe they want to be able to trade in their PTO to make a down payment on their house. I don't know. And maybe the folks getting out of the workforce just want to concentrate on the fact that they're finally able to get out of the workforce. So things like LSAs make it easy to customize our own benefits packages for ourselves, without putting too much pressure on the decision maker to put in so many point solutions. And then the other thing that I'll say is that benefits communication techniques are evolving pretty significantly from we've said meet people where they are since 2020. And I think we're evolving past that to a place of meet people where they want to be met. So discovering, does Suzy like to receive text messages, or does she want to read the poster in the bathroom that goes over all the OE stuff? So really learning how employees want to communicate, and not just saying, we're going to meet you how you want to be met, but doing it. And if Suzy says, I want those text messages, that's how we communicate with her.
Yeah, that's great. Suzy, since Sims kind of put the LSA plug out there for being flexible, would love to hear your perspective on meeting people where either where they are or where they want to be met.
It's funny that Sims mentioned communication channels, because at Level right now, we are helping a lot of our large enterprise customers for 1/1, right? For 1/1 launches. Y'all, everybody, like, home mailers are not dead. Employers are using a number of different channels, to include the snail mail, to Sim's point, to reach people where they want to be met. I have to go to fitness on this one, and I often do, but 4 different generations. Moving more can help all 4 generations, and that is going to be different for all 4 generations. So just making sure, even if it's not an LSA, making sure the gym network that your organization is bought into offers some at-home solutions, be it equipment, be it digital access, whatever it might be. You guys, and crunch the numbers, take it, a weight loss, a 5% weight loss. It's not that much. It's not that much in pounds, but all of your comorbidities that cost a lot of money are going to go down, or your health will improve. I'm talking about blood pressure. I'm talking about cholesterol. I'm talking about sugar. Like every 5% weight loss is all that it takes. But if I am someone from an older generation thinking about retirement, and I have never stepped foot in a brick and mortar gym, and that dumbbell over there in the corner terrifies me, I'm not going into the gym network that you've given me access to. Give me something for home. Can I do a virtual personal training, right? So I think we have to think about lifestyles, where people are in their season of life. And I have to fit fitness into the conversation here, because I think it's an investment that will always yield returns.
Yeah, that's awesome. I thought we were going to get another Globo Gym drop there, Suzy. Hey, Tony, Sam from Denver asked about kind of with the idea of doing more with less. Many companies, and we've heard it here, aren't adding anything, right? It's keeping status quo. Don't peel away, because it's really hard to take things away. But keep the status quo, do more with less, or maybe squeaking in a few like low cost, high value benefits that are out there. Is there anything that you would recommend from like a low cost, high value, or something that you've seen that has been really attractive to companies to be able to provide something extra versus last year when they're trying to keep costs similar?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I like to do with my clients is, and I'm sorry to use such a consultant word, but a group of words, but total rewards optimization. And really, and it starts by, and I'm going to go back to the generational analysis, but looking at which generations are in your workforce and the percentage of those generations. And then from that, we have tools and resources that can tell us what kind of benefits those different generations value. And then when we look at the array of benefit offerings within a particular employer, we may be saying, look, we're not asking you to reduce your spend of total rewards, but reallocate the spend to something that is more valuable to your cohorts, and so to your generational cohorts. And you don't need to spend necessarily more, but it's optimizing your spend to benefits that make more sense for your generations. And I have, this sounds so simplistic, but I had a client that just was very much against voluntary benefit offerings, but now that, and they only offer a qualified high deductible health plan, and voluntary benefits can align very nicely with a high deductible health plan. And when I say voluntary, I'm talking primarily about accident, critical illness, and hospital. And those benefits are low cost, high return, but the argument being that employees forget that they enrolled in them. But now many of these carriers are offering auto claim adjudication where, for example, if they see a disability claim coming in, they do outreach to that member to say, hey, we see you've had a disability claim. Don't forget you have accident coverage. So we're going to auto reimburse you from your accident policy. These are very low cost benefits that can add a lot of value. They had a bad reputation many, many years ago when I started out in the business, but they're adding a lot more value at a very low cost. No cost to the employer, or low cost to the employee.
Yeah, that's awesome. We do hear a lot of conversation, especially with benefits folks, about the education of what exists. And it almost feels like we're getting to a point in life where, like, if something happens, I'm in a car accident, or the wind blew siding off my house, or all these things are actually things that have happened to me in the past year. Those types of things. It feels like it's worth going to your benefits folks and just saying, hey, this life thing just happened. Is there anything that can help me that we have on our as part of our benefits? Because it feels like there's some stuff out there that, to your point, might be helpful. Is that like a good strategy like that we should start thinking about in just being employees and going to ask just in case? Let me have a thought on that, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I don't mean to make it such a short and simple answer,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Easy. Love it. That's all we need. We'll just take that soundbite, a hot soundbite.
Yes.
Suzy mentioned a little bit about like, especially as it relates to fitness around the, home fitness versus external to home gym fitness, wherever that fitness place is. And it kind of matches up. Aaron from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania asked us about shifting, how the shift from remote and hybrid work environments has impacted the benefits landscape. Now, I know we talked a little bit about physical fitness. Suzy, is there anything else that has come to mind in your conversations between the remote and hybrid work environments and impacting benefits?
We're doing a lot more funds specific to work from home, but we're also doing a lot more commuter accounts where if employers want folks in the office for brainstorming purposes, for that creativity, for social well-being purposes, employers are, versus pre-pandemic, we're seeing that employers are willing to contribute more for transit and parking. So kind of on both ends of the line, we are definitely seeing a shift there in terms of the benefits, the specific benefits that folks need.
Yeah, totally. That kind of made me think, and this is going to be selfish for me, but thinking about the kind of like time off, right? People are thinking about time a lot. Time. Do I want to commute? Do I have to commute? Not gonna commute. Like you hear all those kind of thoughts going on. Do you see? Are you seeing any change in employers in the way they think about time and how they offer that as a benefit? Maybe it's paid time off or something like that. Any evolution that's starting to emerge there, Sims?
Sure. I mean, I think like one of the most prolific vendors in that space, PTO Exchange, they've experienced incredible growth over the last few years. And their pitch is essentially, this is the flip side of the unlimited PTO conversation, right? This is defined PTO. They help employers by allowing employees to cash in their PTO for other stuff so that the employers don't hang on to that PTO on their balance sheet, right? So that's an interesting thing. But I've found, Blue Raven Actuarial, we're a very small startup. We're 2 years old, and we recruit a lot from large brokerages when we're trying to get our talent, because these people are well trained, know what they're doing, and we don't offer benefits, so we sell on time and on quality of life. And just to give you an example, we're on a 4-day work week, but we're also fully remote forever. We don't own any physical office space. And that was the pitch that got me to join, because I'd been on the road so much away from my family, and I was essentially buying myself back quality of life by getting a benefit package centered around flexibility rather than benefits themselves.
Gotcha. So that's probably a kind of a company cultural decision versus an actual benefit. It sounds like, outside of like PTO Exchange. Yeah,
it is, but it's more that it's a cultural thing, but we're framing it as a benefit.
Yeah.
When you come to me and say, what's your 401k match? I say, hey, we don't have a 401k match, but let me tell you about this cool thing where we don't work on Fridays. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Tony, Suzy, either of you have any thoughts on the time perspective as it relates to benefits, whether it's framed as a benefit or culturally?
I've seen a lot of organizations do well-being days. So in addition to the holidays on the company calendar, there are 4 or 5 days throughout the year that everybody gets off.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen companies do complete weeks. Nike just did it, where a complete week, everybody got off. And I want everyone to stop and think for a second, what does that mean for you, overworked employee? Because we all get there at some point. When you know that internally, your counterparts who you depend on, right, to reach your goals, they're getting time off too. It's pretty awesome culturally, and I've seen it work. I've seen it work more than N=1 in a lot of different organizations.
Sure. I'll throw out, I worked for a company called Lessonly here in Indianapolis, and we had a holiday break. And it was a week off, sometimes a week and a half, depending on how holidays fell, right? And knowing that everybody at the company was offline during that time was an incredibly helpful thing, right? Because you're not coming back to 39,000 Slack messages that you missed. It was so powerful that we jokingly brought up, hey, we should have a summer break too. And so we ended up having a summer break, a week off in the middle of the summer, where the entire company was closed, right? Mentally, and Tony and I were talking about this before the show here, thinking about like, it's hard to take time off because you come back and you're basically got to go double time for 2 weeks just to catch up and do the stuff that you're supposed to do anyway. Mentally, having that knowledge of like, those messages just aren't going to be there. Like that was huge. That was huge. I love the positioning there. Tony, anything additional to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have many of my clients are evaluating unlimited PTO, one to remove the liability of PTO from their books, but they're also struggling with compliance as it relates to various leave laws that are coming out across the country in multiple jurisdictions, and how to accommodate and align to be compliant with those leave laws, because sometimes it conflicts with unlimited PTO. So there are some challenges there, but and time off is definitely a topic for all of my clients. And I think back to when I had my children, and I think I took a day or two off, but now a lot of organizations are offering paid parental leave for 4 weeks, regardless of gender. And as a father, I could have had 4 weeks off up to 1 year after the birth of my child. And I think about organizations doing that, and I'm going to bring it back to bereave a little bit, Justin, and say so many employers only offer 3 days, 4 days, 5 days of bereavement. And if I lost a child and was only given 5 days of bereavement leave, I mean, forget it. I'm not going back to work in 5 days after the loss of the child. So I think there's also starting to be a little bit more focus on some of those types of benefits as well, that can go a long way from an employee relations standpoint, and are a very small investment to make.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I'm going to stay way off myself. I'm not going to look at the soapbox that I want to get on, but really appreciate the consideration of both ends of the spectrum, right? That you just shared. There's like the celebratory moments of life that you would give time off for, and there's the non-celebratory moments, and it doesn't have to be death. There are a lot of things, right? But really, what we're starting to see, just to kind of add there, is that companies, the more progressive ones, are starting to align policies, and whether that's because of state mandates that are thrown into the mix, or just because they're starting to look at their entire policy, like time off leave policy spectrum, starting to align based on why they have those policies in the first place, right? Why do you do a 4 week, or we saw a 16 week paid parental leave recently? That same company had a 5-day bereavement leave, right? Like, why do you have 16 weeks? And whatever that answer is, apply it to other areas where leave might occur. And now you're working with a little bit of a strategy versus kind of a historical, because that's the way it is kind of mindset. Hey guys, we got one from Keegan here. Keegan from Bereave in studio. right behind my computer. So this is super hot. Now you're on the real hot seat. It looks kind of fun too. He said, rapid fire. If you're making the decision to bring on 3 new benefits and cost isn't a concern, and you are on the executive team, what are you picking? I'll give you a moment. 3 new benefits, cost isn't a concern, and you're making the decision to impact your employees, no matter how many employees you have, no matter what they're in. Anybody ready?
This is tough, man. I feel like I'm going to have to either mention every one of my clients by name or
I have 2 right off the top of my head, and one is really focused financial well-being solution, because we talk about mental health. Financial well-being is the core of mental health, and employers need to make an investment in providing their employees with financial wellness, and that to me is counseling around debt management, retirement planning, financial advising. Like, financial well-being is at the core of everything. If you are drowning in debt and you don't have any retirement savings, you're not sleeping, so then you're not doing your fitness, you're not going on runs with Suzy, you're because you're too tired and you're stressed. And so financial well-being, and I think another component of that I am a big fan of, and Suzy, it's not just because you're on the panel, LSAs are hot and they're so amazing, and make the investment because you can provide so much value to your employees. Yes, there is a cost to do it, but if you said no cost consideration, offer an LSA with a meaningful amount that is going to be to give people what they want to be able to spend the money on via the LSA. I know it's only 2, but I want to give Sims and Suzy time to talk.
That's all right. That's all right. And by the way, Matt Trotsky, I just saw your follow-up to the previous, so we'll come back to that. Sims, what are your 3 maybe that you want to name drop your clients or not?
I won't name drop.
Okay.
I will name drop one. They're not my client, but I agree with Tony's take on financial education, because he's right. If you don't have your most basic needs in Maslow's hierarchy met, you cannot be mentally healthy. It is not possible. So Sunny Day Fund is a company I really love in the space, because they help employees, with the help of their employers, actually create savings. It's not for retirement, but it's so they're not taking loans out of their 401k or wherever they're getting money from beyond that. I would also put in just a flexible time off program. So I know not everybody's like me. I'll never go back to work in an office. Some people want the flexibility, but I think you got to have, I would put in a hybrid optional work environment if I could, with the ability to take unlimited plus mandatory PTO. Because I think that's important with an unlimited PTO policy, to include a mandate of, call it 2 to 3 weeks. Because I've found for myself personally as a remote worker, I've had years since 2020 where I've made a lot of money. But the thing that's been most important to me since then has been the amount of time I've got to spend with my kids, the amount of time I've got to spend at my home, not worried about being in a meeting in person or commuting to the office just because I had to for no reason. So I'm only doing 2 as well. Sorry, Keegan. In your question.
He'll come after you on that. Suzy, I was going to say 3, but the trend is 2. So whatever you feel comfortable with.
Well, I'm going to break it down
do 4. Get wild if you want.
I'm going to break it down a little bit. So I don't think anybody's going to be shocked here to know that I would recommend an intentionally broad lifestyle spending account. To Tony's point, though, with a funding amount that is meaningful. And I like it to be intentionally broad, i.e., anything except alcohol and firearms. Okay. I like that, because then we can do the non-clinical counseling that's so important for mental health. We can do the fitness of choice meet you where you are. You can do the productivity stuff that makes your job easier. But then I would also do a fund for social connection. So if I'm Sims and I work in a completely remote organization, and I actually do too here at Level, this is where I can do Coffee Connect with a coworker, or if somebody's down the road from me, we can break bread and grab a meal together. This is, I can let it roll over and save it up to do a team event. Social connection, especially for those remote and hybrid environments where you might go into the office a couple of days a week, doesn't mean your team's going to be there. So a real connection, an intentional connection fund outside of that. And I also want to mention a hyper-specific one that I love and I come back to and I think about. I'm the mom to three NICU kids that had a road, okay, when they were born. And Juno is a child disability insurance that gives financial support for parents in the event that their child suffers something like cancer, or if they're diagnosed with a disability. It's you know what, like bereave, it's one of those benefits you really don't want to use. You hope nobody on your team or in your org needs to use, but man, if they do, you are so glad that it's there. So I'm getting hyper specific with Juno, and then all the love for LSA.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think someone maybe from Juno is on today. And if they're not, I think they registered. Make sure we get that shout out. So that's great stuff. Thank you. Thank you for going through that fun little exercise. I want to come back. This was JT from Gainesville, Florida, specifically. I want to come back to the conversation about communication. It says, what strategies do you recommend to HR teams to effectively communicate benefits to employees and ensure high engagement? So this isn't necessarily about the benefit. This is about, how do I know we have the benefit, right? Do you put it on the employee to say, hey, when anything happens in life, just come ask and hopefully we've got something to cover you? Or are there successful communication strategies that you've seen, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, you know, and you go back to, because so many organizations have a corporate population, a manufacturing population, drivers out delivering goods, you know, and so reaching these people is very different from a communication standpoint. But if you think about all of us as humans and the way we receive information today, it's in quick, you know, I don't need a paragraph of, a page of something explaining my benefit. I need a quick, I'm sorry to use this analogy, TikTok video of what my benefit is, and, or, you know, what some of them are. And so doing little quick hits similar to that highlight a benefit. I know, you know, I had a client, they had a lot of drivers that were delivering goods. They created the car sent things that hang in the mirror that had included their EAP phone number on that. And they had utilization in the EAP that was off the charts. I mean, the norm is like 6%, and they had 30% utilization of the EAP just from that little hanging communication thing in the truck. And the reason they did that, they saw a lot of truckers, a lot of the drivers were experiencing mental health claims, whether that be pharmacy or medical. And I think it needs to be quick and sassy. Sexy benefit. But you know, we receive information like that today. Nobody wants to read an enrollment guide. So it's just, we need quick hits.
Nobody wants to read an enrollment guide. Have you met Sims or not? I'm pretty sure he's probably reading a few enrollment guides.
The enrollment guide, but I will never read it. I swear.
You know, I tell you, I look at an enrollment guide when we're developing a painstaking over every single word, every single graphic, and then, you know, it's It would be better maybe if I made a TikTok video and did something about benefits.
I think you're onto something for especially for the some of those younger generations. I mean, I'm not reading that, and I might not watch a TikTok video, but maybe somewhere in between.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do that. I love the idea for sure. In fact, one of our partners, Ashley Hurd, runs a company called Manager Method, and because managers don't get trained well at all, or don't get trained ever, her company created TikTok style Manager 101, right? So short form videos that managers actually want to watch. To become better managers. So maybe you're onto something, Tony. Matt just asked I'm gonna throw this up here because I didn't come back to his first one like I said I would. Engagement and communication. I worked on site. We would make renewal meeting with a lunch barbecue prizes, filed up every couple of weeks with TikTok. Oh, love it. Okay. Yeah, great stuff there. Like, this is getting to people maybe where they want to be, maybe how they want to be communicated with, kind of to your point earlier, Suzy. That's good stuff, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. Sims, anything on the communication side that you see that is powerful right now?
Yeah. So in a past life, I've worked at enrollment firms, built one. So it's employee engagement is near and dear to me. One thing I'd say as a place to start is I mentioned asking employees how they want to be communicated with. You pair that with real data on the communications they open and respond to. And then you've got your kind of your go forward orders, if you will. I think the place that we miss a lot is that, like Matt put up this great example of, hey, we did this big sick group meeting and then went into omni-channel communication. That's awesome. But how often are we doing that outside of OE? Because more often than not, you do that for 30 days up to OE. Then when OE's done, it's over. So I think communicating year round is a good thing. And then the other thing I'll mention is that a lot of navigation companies are getting much, much better at upfront education. So to Tony's point, something that's quick. I've used navigation companies in the past where I just had an assigned one person that was my nurse navigator. And I'm like, shoot, I don't know if I have a benefit for this. I just stubbed my toe. And I call Suzanne and I'm like, hey, what do I do? And she's like, all right, well, we got these 10 benefits. Here's the ones I recommend, whatever it may be. So I think really taking a data-driven approach and a year-round approach to benefits communication, and then adding in navigation when you have the budget to do so, are the two biggest things you can do to make sure you're communicating with employees.
Yeah, love it. Love it. We're running short on time. I do want to come back to Matt. We were talking a little bit about leave policies, right? And major life events. Matt's question is like, hey, all these examples point to looking into a single bucket of life event leave to avoid all the other buckets that we could create, right? What do you do for bereavement? What do you do for parental? What do you do for this? What do you do for that? Is there advantage to having maybe one bucket? I will say, Matt, there are companies out there like Cocoon, who I think is probably leading the way in this, and they are a leave management platform, but they also have this empathy leave bucket that is all of these life events that is outside of your PTO, that is outside of holidays and the other like time off calendar. But I think it's 30 days on a rolling 12-month basis, where it's anything in life that comes up where you just need a break or you need time that you can pull out of the empathy leave bucket. I've also heard it referred to as compassionate leave, and I might have that switched around with somebody else, but I've seen a little bit of that happening there. And there seem to be a lot of pros and cons to that. But before I give my opinion at all, Suzy, have you thought about the one big bucket of leave for life events, or have you seen it with any of your clients?
I haven't seen it, but it's right. It is like obviously I like a big bucket, and then you use it how you want.
Yep.
And I really love this. He's retired now, but I'm a military spouse, and I've always worked in the corporate world. And I think about these PCSs to Alaska, where I didn't have the PTO to take it. Circumstances like that are absolutely outliers, but meaningful moments in people's lives. I love that specific policy, and then that person under duress or stress has a policy with specifics they can point to instead of having to ask for something outside of policy.
Sure. Yeah, I love it. Well, let's in the sake of time, let's end right there. I feel like we could just keep going and going and going. We said we'd go till 45 past. We've given 3 bonus minutes. Thanks, Suzy, for doing that. Sims, for going over a little bit, and Tony, really appreciate it. Your insight and just incredible professionalism and your expertise. You're just out here sharing. So can't thank you enough for that. Okay, folks, thank you so much for being here with us today. As always, if you're interested in understanding the difference between random acts of bereavement support and actual bereavement support for your team and how it can impact your P&L, please hit us up. Happy to talk. We don't charge to have conversations because we learn at each one. We've got some exciting programming coming later this month and into October. That's already scheduled. Really looking forward to getting that in front of you as well. Tony, Sims, Suzy, again, thank you so much. And we'll be sure to link to your LinkedIn profiles at the very least in our follow-up so people can find you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See you all soon. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.